Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Love Ignites Peace, the book club edition. We are so happy to be joining you all again this week. And we have a new and exciting book club member. Her name is Noelle Dunker, and she is a wellness educator for a school that is kindergarten through sixth grade. And we were all just talking before the podcast started how we wish that she could have been our teacher because she really helps kids figure out how to not only cope but thrive in life through all situations. So we're so happy you said yes to be on the book club, Noelle.
Thank you for having me.
Yay.
I'm excited.
You want to tell us about yourself, Noelle?
So, I have been a teacher for, I think I'm in the middle of my 28th year. I've taught elementary school all the way, but I'm just super grateful to have a position that I can help kids manage and thrive in life, understanding themselves better and understanding the world better. I also have two daughters, so I experienced that as they grew up, and I'm about ready to be a grandma for the first time. So
Yay.
Wow, what a good introduction to a new member.
And ladies, another September baby.
right, September 1st. So looking
The
forward-
fifth.
Team Virgo killing it.
Yeah, the Virgos out here.
So since last book club, has anybody had any encounters or experiences calling on angels in their life?
I
Come
went
on,
to
Jenna.
Tracy, you guys.
What?
Oh, wow.
I did. I done did it. She's a sweetheart. I haven't even gotten to debrief with Ashlyn. So I gotta reserve the best friend time before I delve into it too much. But she is a real life angel herself. She's just really sweet and has a great presence. And I felt really great coming out of that call. So I talked about a challenge that has been kind of persistent in my life. And she was really sweet and helpful on that. So she called all the angels. She called the angels to an event that I had to go to that was going to present this conflict because of the people who are involved. And I'll reveal more as we go in future podcasts.
Well, that was actually a really big leap for you, Jenna, because I know you were not necessarily, I don't know if skeptical was the right word, but you just weren't sure you wanted to jump off the ledge and go down that route.
Yeah, and I told her that too. I was on the call and she's like, "What are you feeling?" And I was like, "I'm really nervous. I don't know what this is gonna." I didn't think anything bad was gonna come of it. It was kind of just, this is opening a can of things maybe that I don't know if I believe in or I haven't explored. And again, I've talked about it. I definitely have a spiritual presence in my life that's always been there, but using maybe somebody else who has these gifts to see and hear things. I didn't know how I felt about that, but she was great. So I think even just from that lens, it was so beneficial in just trying something new that you're a little bit uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
Jenna, I am just so impressed. I am so, so proud of you.
Thank you. Now I have to do subconscious transformation work because I was reading this book and I was like, okay. Stop.
Oh, I second that though. I am so freaking proud of you, JP. You're so amazing, and I just am so excited to debrief on the BFF chat about this even more. But this is a big leap, and again, it's just dipping your toe into the maybes and finding what works for you on your journey.
And the coolest thing that I will say went a lot along the lines of what this book is about is I think everyone on this call, or most everyone, has spoken to Tracy. I was like the last holdout, but she said all of her clients have to call her because you have to reach out for the information and you have to seek the answers. And I thought that that was really cool. It's just all about this journey of self-exploration. It's not just going to happen. You have to seek that out in every facet of your life. So that was a cool takeaway that I will definitely be holding on to.
Wise words, very wise words, Jenna.
It just ties back into that unemployed workforce that just is waiting for you to say, please help me. Which, continuing in the AP-JP synergies from last time, I went and saw Jenna for my birthday, and we promised from the last podcast that we would tell you what my birthday surprise was. But it ties into an angel story because I actually had gotten a little bit of a cold right before I was supposed to go to San Diego. and it was my birthday and everything. You guys, it was so crazy. I am not exaggerating when I tell you this story. I was not feeling great. I was got a little the sweats, like my nose is running. And when I was washing my face, I out loud said, "Angels, healing angels, please take this sickness away from me. Please help me be healthy, thriving, and ready to rock and roll for this trip, for my birthday. Like, please." You guys, I am not kidding you. 25 minutes later, I felt 100% fine. I literally was like, holy crapola, that actually worked. It was so crazy. It was so wild. And I was like, wow, you know what? Calling on the angels. Why not? What do you have to lose? We always say it. What do you have to lose?
Gotta ask.
So then when I arrived in San Diego, Jenna picked me up. We had a surprise itinerary. We went to a lovely little coffee shop, and then she took me and we got massages and had a day by the pool at a resort in San Diego. So it was such a sweet and special surprise. So thank you, Jenna. And
Yay.
thank you, Angels, for making it still happen. Well, anybody else with an angel story?
In writing this book, every day, every single day, I called out and asked my guardian angels for assistance. And I would say, literally, I can't do this without you. I need your help to be able to do this. And they came through.
Big time.
Well, that's a perfect lead in because this month, as we've already been discussing, is super, super special because our very own Paigey, I really have a hard time calling my mom just Paige because she's mom to me. So Paigey feels like endearing, but not mom. My mom, Paige, wrote this incredible book that we're going to be discussing called Love Ignites Peace, Our Next Evolution. And so I'm going to read the little synopsis here and then we'll kind of get started with questions. So in 2008, Paige received the words Love Ignites Peace. They arrived unexpectedly and with life-changing impact. She has spent the last 15 years learning how to live those words in her own life. She discovered that love is a becoming, an extraordinary parallel path to loving self and loving others. When the paths are mastered, peace is the outcome. Love Ignites Peace is the message that transformed her life. Paige takes you on a journey walking the parallel paths of love, empowering your individual evolution and the evolution of our collective human community. So, ladies, with that said, what are your overall thoughts about the book? And kind of tagging on to that, what was your favorite story, lesson, or part of the book? We talked about a lot of things in the book like self-love and love stakes actions, duality, the subconscious mind, the human experience, so many things to pull from.
I'll go first. For me, it was definitely the duality challenge. That was by far my favorite part. That was the education, right? I've said this in previous podcasts. It's learning and understanding. And that is what I would say probably resonated with me the most and going, okay, so now when a situation arises, kind of taking that step back and looking at kind of both sides of it and still being able to take the negative side of it and being able to kind of allow that to push it to the love side versus fear. So fear for me is a big one. I absolutely loved it. The stories, I feel like I was a part of a lot of these stories kind of in the background, but I knew a lot of these stories. And honestly, I know it was said earlier, but I am so incredibly proud. I loved it.
Thank you, Darian.
I did.
And I do want you all to be honest on your feedback. I know that you will, but I want you to be honest. If you hated something, let me know.
All right, then I'll give you my one thing, but you did warn me. Was at the very beginning, you did warn me. So I was prepared for it. And I was like, wow, she's really dang wordy. Because you know how I am. I'm like, let's just get to the point. Don't need the color. Let's just make this happen. And then it was actually interesting because as you kind of went into like the teachings and not necessarily so much the stories, for me, it was like, oh, okay, hold on. And I got to go back and reread that sentence to make sure I actually understood what I was reading. I actually ended up really enjoying it when it came to the education side of it and the practice.
Well, I have to say, Darian, I was probably most worried about you because you're our toughest critic.
There are some truth to when I say, there's a lot of bias from me as well with it. But it was just powerful because it's like actually out there. It's in the world. I actually had been posting some of the lines out of it. And I've had like 3 people ask me for this book.
You can actually get the ebook still currently fully on our website, but the paperback will be coming soon, probably in the next, I would say, conservatively by September, hopefully before then.
Well, I loved it. The simplicity of it, it's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. The steps are kind of laid out simply, but you really have to pause and be really brutally honest with yourself to really get the growth and all of the meat that's attached to it. So I loved the steps. I wrote them on my mirror with a marker, and I made a little screensaver wallpaper on my phone just as a reminder, because it's, in the moment of feeling big things, it's just nice to have that visual reminder. I'm a visual learner, so that visual reminder. But I loved all the stories that went with it that kind of backed up how you actually use those in your life. And I think that's really important to a reader, to have that use that you actually put it to play in your life and really shared with us.
That vulnerability.
I think those stories are important. I so much better understand a concept when somebody has a story to relate to that concept. That's just me personally.
It's almost like a parable. Your story is a parable. Paige, I was privileged, and thank you so much. I actually got one of the actual copy of it that you had made, because clearly I like a real book that I can read. So I'm so appreciative that I actually had it in my hand. Actually reading words for me, you brought the pictures alive of your journey. When you say love ignites peace, reading the book, what stood out to me most is ignite. You were movement. You weren't just accepting something. The ignite was the catalyst for the change for yourself. And you taking us on your personal journey and sharing the steps is igniting. That's what I'm appreciative for. It brings movement, and I was moved all the way through the book. So thank you for the action.
Thank you for those kind words. And it kind of goes back to what Jenna was saying a little bit earlier about you have to ask, you have to initiate it.
But that's the other thing too. I sometimes on these self-discovery or self-help journeys, there's a huge feeling of discomfort and fear. And I think that that's a part of any journey, but this, I felt moved. That's the exact right word to put it with the way Teresa said it. When I was reading this, I wasn't feeling uncomfortable. I wasn't feeling scared. I was genuinely feeling so inspired and peaceful just reading it. So I gave Paige a whole spiel before the podcast about how much I love the book and how proud I am of her. And I know everyone on this podcast is very proud of her. And I think it's not just a book. It's not just about your story, Paige, but this is what Love Ignites Peace is about. And I have tenfold a much, much, much better understanding of what that journey looks like. And I'm part of this podcast. I'm close to this work that you guys are doing. And this just tied it all together with a beautiful bow on it, gave me actionable steps to follow, and honestly just left me feeling so light and full of love and peace. Like that's exactly what this is. And
I think connected, right? You put a bow on it and all of a sudden it's like that you're connected, we're ignited. And yeah, you're saying it perfectly, but it's that connection. Like we now get it. We now know how it really happened.
Totally. And I know a lot of us annotate while we're reading these books, but you can tell how ignited I was by this. I'm adding stuff to the list here of add your own words to this list of how you characterize love as an action. And I added release, spirit, soul filling, eternal, abundant, advocacy. Like even just reading these, I feel just so amazing. You kind of feel unstoppable when you're in this mode. And I know we stopped talking about calling out quotes that we love, but I wanted to leave my comment on this because I just absolutely loved this quote. It's a little bit long, but it says, "Love encourages you to shine your light as bright as you can make it glow. You are never too much or not enough. You are just right. Love generates happiness. You have the ability to love yourself so much that it feels like you are growing sunshine in your heart and a prolific garden of goodness in your life. Love transforms the opposite of love, not love, into healthy and empowered relationships. It creates prosperity and harmony. It sets healthy boundaries with unhealthy people. Love says that you matter, that you are important as a person. Within all of your relationships, love unifies and brings people together. Love is the most powerful energy source on the planet." When I read that, I was just like, oh my Lord. Like, we talk about mic drops on this podcast, but I drew a sunshine next to it.
Thank you for that. Love is a difficult concept to write about. People have been trying to write about love for thousands of years, and I literally have been like scratching my head as I've been given the message, Love Ignites Peace. Like, how do you want me to describe love? I mean, it is huge. And it's a different love than romantic love of what we're talking about here. It's a much bigger love. So
It's love as an action.
It's love as an action. That's exactly right.
I like the part, love elevates your feelings and your actions by knowing and recognizing you for who you truly are. So you can offer that same non-judgmental understanding, forgiveness, acceptance, and respect to others. Love Ignites Peace is the inner guidance system that routes and reroutes you back to loving yourself and others. It's the greatest gift you can give yourself and to our collective human community. I could cry reading those words. It's so huge. Well done, my friend. Yeah,
Thank you.
beautiful. I have goosebumps in my head. Ooh, I'm all tingling right now. Did you feel it? Like, yeah.
It's so fun hearing what everybody thinks and has experienced because I've obviously lived part of this journey, or this whole journey, not part of it, this whole journey with my mom throughout this. And these teachings are a core principle in the way we both live our lives. But to your point of feeling the chills and the high vibration, like I know this stuff, I live this stuff with her, but I myself felt just this lightness and this inspiration. And I was laughing because, I'm like, I'm highlighting myself. I'm like, this is literally my life. And I'm like, oh, that's actually a great point. Like, you know, so I've told you this, Mom, but I as well am so incredibly proud of you. You did such an incredible job. And I know that you've worked hard to hone this craft of writing in of itself. And you were very, very dedicated to do what you had to do to get it done in the time period that you had, that 30 days to get it to publish. And you should feel very proud of yourself. And I truly do recommend to every person listening to read the book, and not just because my mom wrote it and not just because I love her, but because genuinely, as everyone is saying, like you will feel, I think, inspired to be a better person to yourself and a better person in the world. And I think you'll just leave feeling this like higher vibration, this lightness, this hope and inspiration in humanity.
I liked how you decided the chronological going through the book. I liked how you shared part of your childhood and how your mom and dad were the best. Like, I don't know who would not want your mom and dad as a mom and dad, truly. Your dad, I know you share so many stories about that. I like that you were so honest in all that unconditional loving they gave you. There was another side to it, but not confident growing up, different things. I liked how you shared both sides of that. And then you move into your adult relationship with your husband and sharing the reflection and how you were both teachers to each other in such love and understanding to write that and bring us into how you did it and how you both came to respect and understand. It was powerful, Paige. Really, it was beautiful. So thank you for allowing us to come in to your life, because everybody has little parts of that and you made it real. So thank you.
Thank you,
I think
Teresa.
I think what was so good about what Teresa just said in regards to what you did is you were able to truly exemplify difficult experiences, relationships through this lens of Love Ignites Peace, and how it completely shifts your entire experience within those traumas, dramas, and tough situations. You did an incredible job of not only standing there saying this is what you should do, but demonstrating, but like, wait, you've done it and it actually has played out. Yeah, it actually works. Thank you. It actually works. And the relationships that you have in your life, you have a continued relationship with your ex-husband in a loving, beautiful way. I mean, not a lot of people can say that. And that is from intention and healing and all of these beautiful things.
And the other gift that came with that, a lot of times you hear stories about people with really big traumas, and you can see how those affect their lives. But just those little, they don't feel little at the time, but when you look back, those little experiences where you took away some belief about yourself that wasn't true, that you carried all the way through your life. And then to recognize, well, A, I can let that go, but to recognize the impact that it did have. And then to turn it around with gratitude was so beautiful. And what a gift you can give to others to really look at some of those little points in their life that impacted them in big ways as they grew older, and those beliefs grew and grew and blossomed, but that you can let it go with gratitude.
I felt really seen, Paige, honestly, from your story, because I had a really similar childhood to the one you described. Two very loving parents that I probably didn't realize some of the negative things I took away from that until very recently, of similar, always relying on other people to make my decisions, relying on other people to make me feel safe, and not feeling empowered that I could just make a decision on my own. And the other piece of that was when you were talking about your friend's mom, who really left an imprint on calling out something that you said. I had a similar experience where when you say these things as an adult, you feel a little bit ridiculous. But I will never forget this. I was a really, really shy kid, and I was trying out gymnastics. That was one of the things my parents really coddled me. And I wish that they had like pushed me into trying new activities, but it was always kind of like, no, like we'll keep you in your safe little bubble, until high school. My dad really made me break out of my shell. But I was going to a gymnastics class. I was maybe 7 or 8, and I'd never done it before. And I remember all the kids are getting in line doing tumbles and stuff. And I think I did a cartwheel, and these catty little girls whisper like, she's not even good. I was so much better than her when I first started. And that has had an impact on my life for 20 years. Seriously. And I don't think I realized how big of an impact, but Martin kind of called it out to me, because I never want to go play sports with them. He's like, you're so athletic. Why are you not on our volleyball team? Why are you not doing this? And I'm like, it makes me anxious. Like, it's not fun. I don't want to. And I finally traced it back to that, because I'm so paralyzed with fear that I'm going to get judged and people are going to call out mistakes or me not being good. And it's literally like that child inside of me that's just so scared. And it sounds so silly, because everyone else is like, who cares? I miss my serve all the time. But for me, I'm like, it's so terrifying. It has to be traced back to that moment. And the fact that you gave similar stories to that really made me feel seen and heard, that those are valid moments that impact your life, and that it's never too late to course correct.
Jenna, that was amazing, because that's what I'm really hoping, that there are so many stories in this book, that there are stories that people can relate to. And I even shared a story that happened to me in kindergarten. And I really want people to know that this is how you unpack who you became, because we literally create meanings about who we are from our interactions with other people. And it makes total sense that you have anxiety about that, Jenna. And nobody would understand that but you, because you're carrying the subconscious belief now because of that. But once you're aware of that, what can you do when you have that awareness? I think I say in the book probably 5 times, you cannot transform what you aren't aware of.
And it's also the grace, though, to process that fully and in a healthy way, because I think so many people have said, well, just go out, just go play that sport, just go do it. That's how you conquer your fears. And that feels like too big of a leap, which makes it feel like it's so impossible. And this is like, hey, just get started, just dabble, just start unpacking before you even go try to actually do any of those things. Work on your mind and your physical being to start healing some of those beliefs that aren't true, that are stuck in your subconscious. Clear the gutter out before you can keep moving along.
Well, that's the tough part for some people, is taking the time to even be aware enough to even know there's a question in their, that they even have a belief about anything. How do you know you have a belief about anything unless you take the time and you're able to listen to other people? Paige, listening to your physical body is talking to you. Just me reading parts of this, I think as an outsider looking into your story, your physical manifestations, I think, was a big impetus in you becoming really aware of, I've got to do something here. That's something I would like to shout out to the listeners. Listen to your body. And I love that you were so vulnerable in your health journeys. Your body was screaming, and you finally listened. What is my body really telling me? And I hope that's something, when people read this book, that they will take a moment and listen to their bodies. If your shoulder hurts, if your back hurts, if you are limping, or chronic headaches or laryngitis or whatever, your body is talking to you. And you so beautifully shared your physical journey in Love Ignites Peace. So I thought that was magnificent.
We are these beings that physically, mentally, and spiritually, we are all connected. I don't just mean to each other, but I mean within ourselves. All of those things create a huge and beautiful web. And you really can't separate them because they're all working together to the you that you bring out into the world.
One last thing I wanted to say before we move on to our next question is, one word I love that you used, Jenna, was the grace that it gave you. And one thing that I've been saying in support of everything my mom wrote about is it's really a package of how to experience grace through your growth. Point blank, it is so much grace through the growth. It is unpacking the story, being understanding, discerning, allowing, respecting, loving yourself. It's exactly what you said. And the other piece that I wanted to say is, it's amazing to me that obviously someone can write about principles, but they don't necessarily always embody them. I know my mom better than I think she would say anybody else, and she truly embodies every single thing she wrote about. And I hope that that's an inspiration to everyone listening and everyone reading, is that this isn't something that's only accessible to an enlightened few, you know. Not that she's fully enlightened, none of us are, but you know what I mean? Like, every single person, no matter where you start, you have this ability to move up this Love Ignites Peace ladder journey to self-actualize and experience a freer, happier, more joyful life. It is truly possible.
What I want to say is that we've all had difficulties in our lives. Every single one of us has. And I don't want people to feel shame or guilt or blame or embarrassment or any of those things, because every single person on this planet has had similar experiences. So know that as you open this book, no matter what you've experienced in your life, there is nothing but love and support jumping off those pages for you.
Amen, amen. That's what we're here to do. We all want to support you. And I think that's what every person on this book club is intending to do too. We're showing up here because we want to hold space for everyone's journeys. With that said, let's move on to our next question. I took another little passage that I thought was really profound and created this question from it. It says, learning to live Love Ignites Peace is a journey for all of us, a tour de self. Very creative, Mom. That is well worth the effort. As I learned along the way, the only person I could change was me, and the most important relationship I had was the one with myself. This journey has not always been easy, but every bit of it has produced a happier, healthier, on fire with life version of me. The mental and emotional suffering from my old beliefs is gone, and the joy from my new belief is fully installed. This was a journey of healing my not so positive self-beliefs so that my heart could be wide open to loving without strings attached. It was an inner journey that transformed my external relationships. And my question is to all of you on book club and listeners, how have you seen your external experiences and relationships transform as a result of your inner work and your inner transformation? Because I think that we all really can relate to that, but I feel like with this awareness, you can see how it's tangibly changed like your outer world. And if that's too hard of a question, we can just skip it. But go ahead.
No, I mean, I can go. I don't know if this is exactly answering the question, but this is where it's leading my thoughts. That idea of focusing everything back to yourself each time is such a light bulb to me, because all of the times when you harbor anger, resentment, envy, jealousy, all of those not love feelings towards other people and towards other people because you feel like a victim of their actions, that leaves you at a low vibe. And that's what Paige was trying to say. She's like, the more you sit there and think that you are owed an apology or you deserve X, Y, and Z, or this person needs to treat you this way, maybe all of those things are true, but guess what? Sitting there and grumbling and thinking about them is not going to change that. It's not going to get those things for you. So you have to go from within and say, okay, how am I going to change this? How am I going to look at the way this person is treating me with some empathy or some understanding? How am I going to create better boundaries and all of these things? And that's all you can do. And the amazing thing about that is that changes the whole situation. That other person in your life might not change at all. They might still not be giving you the apology that you deserve. Nothing changed on their end, but your whole world changed on your end. And that changes the whole situation. It goes back to your perception creates your reality. So change your perception and make your perception one of love and gratitude and happiness rather than all of those other not love things. And by the way, I just loved that that's the way you described it, because I think a lot of people would say the opposite of love is hate. And I don't think you ever used that word once in the book. It was basically like there's love. And like you said earlier, it's really complex, but it's kind of that action and feeling that when you are on that vibration, you know. But when you're not love, you also know. It doesn't feel good.
I absolutely love that as well.
I also think that as you start this journey of self-growth, to really recognize in yourself the things that you want to let go of so that you can show up authentically in your life, is just anytime you notice those triggers or those things that bother you. They don't even have to be something as big as a trigger, if you will. But if you notice that feeling within your body that it doesn't feel the way you want to feel, I need to go inside and find out. I am never upset for the reason I think I am. And I am never upset for something someone else did. I'm upset because there was a little thorn that touched a sore or a place in my body or in my heart that needs to be healed. So I felt like that message was over and over and over again in such a beautiful way, not a like pounding it home, but just a beautiful reminder constantly that it's an inside job.
I like that.
So we can move on to the next question, which ties into something we said earlier, which is we often say you can't change the things that you're not aware of. Did this book help bring you an awareness to areas of your life you need to change? Obviously, for Jenna, that was a big yes. She's already mentioned one. Do you see the individual aspects of yourself in the different categories of change, right? She mentioned that we're more than just a physical body, right? We're a soul. We're a body, mind, spirit, soul. Like there are different aspects that are calling for your healing and your growth. What do you feel like you're currently called towards to heal, or some of those self beliefs that you want to transcend?
I'm at a particular age in life, and everyone here is in a different decade, right? And you think you're going along, you've worked on your self doubts, your beliefs, your programming, and you clear all that out. That's great. And I'm where I was maybe a year ago, or 10 years ago, or 5 years ago. Done a lot of work over a lot of decades. But now I'm at an age, I want to really say new things are coming up based on where I'm at in this particular stage in life. I didn't know I had an uncertainty. I'm thinking about things that are coming up, looking ahead, that I never had to look at so deeply before. So I think there's always a continuing evolution for new things to clear. I think that's important to keep in mind, not to think at 18 or 28 or 42, you're going to clear everything, because I guarantee in 10 or 20 years, there's going to be something that you are not even ready for. So just be kind to yourself, give yourself some grace in your evolution, and be ready for when these other old beliefs come up about something that you didn't even know existed until you're there. That's where I'm at.
That 1,000% makes sense to me. And I'm in a different decade of my life, but I was thinking so similar when I was reading this, where I was like, wow, we talked a lot about inner child and how a lot of the things are programmed at those young ages because we don't know how to clear them and get rid of that stuff, which by the way, Noelle, your profession is a godsend. They need to have you in every school, because imagine if kids were learning how to use these tools at a young age and manage their emotions. And I feel like I'm more judging of myself, or like hard on myself, when it's something new that has come up in adulthood, where I'm faced by some kind of circumstance that really takes a hit at my self-worth. And those ones really get me, because I'm like, I'm really hard on myself with that. Like, how is this person making me feel like this? Or why is this making me feel insecure? And it is really that ever evolving journey. And I think grace is the perfect word. We brought it up before, but that's really what this journey takes, because you also said in the book page, it's not linear.
It is all over the map.
Yeah.
It's so funny, because one moment you feel like, I got this, I can do it. And then you go to the grocery store and something happens. You're like, oh, keep going.
I literally feel like my head could fall off in agreement. Like I'm nodding my head so hard, I think I'm going to have to massage my neck. Because actually, I just wrote a note about this in my phone this morning, because I had a call with Tracy this week. And part of the message was like, you're blooming again. And I'm like, that is life. It's constantly like weeding and blooming, weeding and blooming. And I had this moment in high school where I was driving home, and I'm so grateful that I can even say this, but like I was driving home listening to Imagine Dragons On Top of the World, if you all know that song. And I just had this moment, my heart was wide open, and I thought, I'm pretty sure life can't get better than this. I'm also pretty sure that I can't get any more awesome than I am right in this moment. Like, that sounds so, and I don't mean that from an ego, but like, I was crushing it in school. I was crushing it in sports. I was fulfilled in my friendships. Like, family was great. Like, everything was so good. And I was like, I just don't know. I don't know where you go from here. Like, I think I've got it all figured out. And of course, that's like a 16-year-old think you have it figured out at 16. Turns out you got a lot to learn. But truly, like you said, Noelle, sometimes you get to that place, you're like, holy cannoli, I think I've figured it out. And then it's like, oops, a little more weeds to pull, a little more flowers to bloom, though. So there's good from that as well. But I just so agree with you.
What was funny is, even for me writing this book, I had a couple of moments, aha moments about myself. even when I was writing this book. And I was like, this is hilarious. The growth never stops. The insights never stop when you're open to receiving them.
You know, it's so interesting, Mom, and my mom and I have not even talked about this yet. So you all are getting like the first live look here. Is reading this book, you mention your body image quite a lot. And
Mm.
I recognize, what do I have maybe from you as my younger influence, which we've talked about this aspect where like I don't really remember my mom ever speaking poorly of herself, but I'm like, how many of these things did I start taking on? If you felt such low self-esteem in that area, I'm certain as a girl, as a daughter, I picked up some of those things along the way too. And so I started doing some subconscious transformation around it as I was reading. So like you said, all these layers always popping up, and this book was beautiful for some of those as well. So before we go to the next question, Darian, was there anything you wanted to add to this one?
No.
So moving on to Love's 6 actions. We talked about how Love's 6 actions, when offered to self and to others, are behaviors that ultimately generate more love. You had written a line about conflict begetting more conflict, or fear begetting more fear, but love creates more love. Within the context of Love's 6 actions, which action do you feel like you struggle with the most? Which one are you most inspired to go and take out into the world in your everyday life? And then overall, do you feel like through Love's 6 actions, we can actually tip that scale of consciousness, that fulcrum scale that my mom wrote about, right? How can we tip it from like the fear, the hate, the low vibes to the high vibes? And for those listening, a reminder of Love's 6 actions before we get started are understand, discern, allow, forgive, accept, and respect. And I always joke there's not an easy acronym for it. I call
Unifar.
it Unifar, because you follow the steps and you will go far. So see, it's obviously effective. Jenna knew it. I mean, come on, people. Unifar.
Where are the t-shirts? Sell them on the website.
Well,
I guess I'll start because I'm already talking. I think the last couple are the hardest for me. I think over the years, especially in adulthood, I've gotten pretty good at understanding. If you can't tell, I'm kind of talking within a specific, Ashlyn knows what I'm talking about. I'm kind of looking at all of this within a specific situation that has been happening in my life with a person that's given me a hard time. So I think the first pieces of those, understanding, discerning, and allowing, I think I'm pretty good at that when it comes to understanding why people behave the way that they do, where their words and actions come from. It all ties back to how people feel about themselves. But I think I really struggle on the acceptance part. Okay, I know why you're doing this. I know where it comes from. I know I can't change you. It's almost like the need to control the narrative and like change that person. Like, I need that person to get it. I need them to understand why they've hurt me. I need them to understand why this is their fault. And it's like me putting the blame on the other person, which, yeah, from my ego standpoint, it is that other person. But going back to all the things we've talked about, it has to come from me. And what has to come from me is, why am I allowing this to affect me? I know that I'm using allow from the Udafar a little bit differently, but that is a big part of it. So I think it's accepting that it just is what it is. You can't change people and you have to turn back to you. That's what I really, really struggle with. I think you talked about cognitive dissonance or dissonance, Paige, and I was like, oh, I feel that. I feel that so big time. But you know what? I'm going to have grace. I'm going to give my little ego some grace, and I'm going to get better at all of these.
Well, I want to ask you, Jenna, real quick. I appreciate you sharing all of that, but I don't know the situation with this person. But what are your boundaries?
Oh, okay. So this is a tough one.
I literally was about to say, oh, that's a tough one, like verbatim. Oof.
Oof. Without saying too much, because I don't want to talk about a story that's not just mine to tell, but it's a person in my life that kind of always has to be in my life. Let's call it family. So there are situations where I have to see this person that I can't avoid. And it's been really tough. The part that's hardest for me to work through is I've come to a place, and I've come to this from a very peaceful place where I'm like, okay, I need to create some boundaries. I need to create some physical distance between this person because I just don't feel good about myself when I'm around this person. And the situation is never good. It feels icky. So it's like, what do? You go in the opposite direction, right? But that's where I'm stuck is I am going to have to be around this person and I'm going to have to be around them for a long time. So it's hard for me to create as many physical boundaries as I would like. And I'm trying to also look at it through the lens of, okay, well, then this is one of those challenges. It's really, really, really forcing me to learn as a human. And it's tough. But if anyone has any suggestions for boundaries, I could really use your help.
We can talk about that off podcast, but
Yeah.
Teresa is a master at boundaries.
Yeah.
If you were going to speak
Boundaries
up,
are a
Teresa.
big thing. It's like the mirror. We all know people show up or something happens and it's just a reflection. So we've had this experience here a few years ago in our little community, so to speak. And the energy of this person was inappropriate. And I had to look at, okay, and they didn't just show up to me, so I didn't take that personally, but why is this happening now? So I had to look at those things also in myself. And interestingly enough, when we get to a point where we understand ourselves, when you know that that person is making you feel this and this and this and this, and you figure it out and you own what that little poke is, gradually they can't be in your energy. They cannot be in your energy. It just will evolve quite naturally. When we own who we are and we are confident and loving of self and want the highest intent, I promise you, I know some of you have had this experience. Naturally, they'll be there, but they'll be so far away. They can't be in that space. That has been my experience.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. That was one of my big takeaways from the book that Noelle mentioned earlier is thinking about the thorns. Because if someone says something about you that you just know is so untrue, like if someone said like, I'm like unethical, that is a value I hold so high. I know without a doubt that I'm a super ethical, honest person. If someone ever told me I was unethical, I would literally just laugh because I know I feel strong in that value of mine. But then I'm realizing, okay, where this person is hurting me, those are insecurities that I have that I haven't worked through from something else. Because if I know those things to be true and someone's saying the polar opposite of what I know to be true, then it should be laughable. So that was the part that was eye-opening to me where I'm like, oh, this person only has power over me because there are still some of those areas that I have insecurity. That was the takeaway from the book. That was life-changing for me to realize. Because I think we usually get to the part of, I know people act like this because of this, or like it comes from something in them. But I have never gotten to the step further where it's like, okay, but what does that say about you? What does it say about you that you're holding their word to be true? What does that say about me? What does that say about what I need to work through? And that I was just like, I feel seen in a good way, but also I feel seen in like a very vulnerable way, like gulp.
I kind of relate it. Those of us who've had children, raise your hand. This is the analogy. We've all parented. When you say something to your child and you mean it, they know, right? Noelle, you even have kids in the classroom. When you mean, not in a mean way, but when you mean it, they will respond. And I will use that same example in your experience, Jenna. When you mean what you say and you own and you stand and have belief and trust in yourself, that's probably a little bit of the journey where you need to investigate.
The part that I have the hardest with, and and that I've seen it in other people as well, is that forgiveness of yourself, especially if you perceive that you've caused harm on someone else. And I notice that until I forgive myself, that same situation just keeps coming up, or something else that touches that thorn keeps coming up until I really fully look at it, and that I recognize, I give myself that grace that at that point in my life, at that moment, the choices that I made, I thought I was making the right choice. And so I have to go back, and that's going through this whole process, is understanding and then discerning. So I feel like that forgiveness and that discernment are so related, because you're judging, and the moment you can move to discernment, then you can forgive. But if you stay in that judgment, you're stuck in that cycle of
Victimhood,
right,
a little bit,
or not even victimhood of like this, I've hurt other people.
but that in a way can be a victim, because quite frankly, there was no intent to harm or hurt
No.
at all. So in saying, oh my God, I hurt him again, it's almost keeping us from moving forward.
Right.
It's almost like a double negative a little bit.
One of the things that was amazing to me is these 6 actions have come to me over the years, and I've practiced them over and over, is that I think forgiveness is one that we all struggle with so much, whether it's forgiving ourselves or forgiving someone else. It's a really difficult one. But the reason that forgiveness is the 4th one down in Love's 6 actions is because, and I think you guys were reiterating this beautifully, is that when you understand your story or someone else's story, when you discern instead of judge, and when you allow that person to have their own experiences, because in the book, there's a whole chapter on experiences and the importance of those experiences. When you can do those 3 things and see those 3 things, it makes forgiveness so much easier. It actually empowers forgiveness in a way that personally I've had wonderful, wonderful, wonderful transformation with. It's empowered my ability to forgive.
I kind of want to touch just a little bit on that, on the allowing people to have their experiences. And Jenna actually kind of talked a little bit about this as well. I also was very much about the allow and accept, because normally we know that they're having these experiences because we are a part of those experiences. And so we believe we have this control. So when they don't make the decision that we want them to make, we can't accept it. So for me, that was just very cyclical. I'm like, I'm a part of this. Like, I know of this. And you keep doing the same thing. I mean, very recently, I have a friend who has been dating this person. And I mean, I met this person 2 years ago. And in my opinion, they are not a kind person. They are not an honest person. I hate to talk really negatively, but seeing this behavior. And of course, I'm the one that's on the phone. I'm the one that she's telling these stories to. And I'm going, okay, all right, cool. So you had this experience once. So we're going to do better, right? And then they go back to this person and the behavior gets worse. And I'm like, I cannot accept this because I'm listening to this. I understand that this is something that you want. So that's understanding the story. I also understand that you want to have this experience. Okay, cool. Oh, so you learned the first time, right? Oh, no, you didn't. So we're going to do this again. No, I'm not. I am not willing to accept it at all. And so the last time it happened, I just got a text message that said, my tail is between my legs. And like the only thing that I could accept out of that was that I could not engage with that conversation. I mean, and you actually said it here. The thing you don't do is say, I told you so. There you have it. And I'm going, so I can't say I told you so. So I'm just going to use the 3-letter duh.
I'm going to copy
What else
that.
do you want?
Duh.
Duh.
Darren, what you're talking about is tricky because it's like this balance between setting boundaries out of self-love, but also like truly applying Love's 6 actions of like, okay, wait, I am gonna allow this. And part of that is not putting your judgment on it and not telling them this is wrong, not pushing them away. So that's a really tricky balance right there.
As you guys were talking, that's why I was just like sitting here and I'm jumping in on this one.
I was going to say that Paige, somewhere in the book, you said something great. I don't know if it was specifically about acceptance. I think it may have been about that action, that acceptance doesn't mean that you are in agreement or alignment, which that was a big one because acceptance, like I said, has been hard for me as one of the actions. And I think that there's a beautiful way to accept what it is what it is, but not agree at all.
No, because when you're saying that you want to be better and you want to do better, and here it is, you're literally going polar opposite. I'm like, absolutely not. I am not accepting this because this is not what you said you wanted.
Trust me, I get it. Acceptance is the hardest one for me. So you don't have to tell me.
Like, nope, not happening. Not willing to do it. The only thing I can do is go, okay.
Well,
the
other part of this, I think in the book, I know that I talk about this, and it's either accepting or allowing, but I think we all have a tendency to want to rescue people and save people. And
Or don't we know? I have a cape.
You have two, Darian, two. No.
They're called
I know who I'm going to call when I need to be saved.
Yourself, Teresa. You're going to call yourself.
1-800-Teresa. But it's so hard to have that awareness too of when you want to save and when you want to rescue.
I shared this story with you guys. Like, I've had a big year of figuring that out. Like, I've had several areas of my life where I have had to fully shift into acceptance. Otherwise, it was going to cause me extreme suffering. It honestly was more of an act of self-love than an act of love for them. It was like, I love you. I see you are driving your car straight off a cliff into the middle of the ocean, but I can't stop you. And my attempts at stopping you will only drive you further away from me, from love and support that will be there. And so I have got to accept this. But that is where my radical self-love action came in, because accepting them gave me peace. So if you can kind of flip the switch on acceptance to that, where it's like, how are you letting that situation win and overtake your life?
And if you haven't
I
listened to the
love
podcast that we released a few weeks ago with Teresa and the story of Teresa and her sister, I highly recommend you listen to it. It is a beautiful story about acceptance. And I think it is one of the most powerful stories I have ever heard that really exemplify the true power of acceptance. Because when you get to that point and you truly can just accept someone as they are, the love that blossoms from that moment and the beauty that blossoms from that moment can really be overwhelming. I mean, really, really beautiful.
That was a good one.
Season 1, episode 29, for anybody listening that wants to go check it out.
I wanted to read this one little thing. Well, two things. One is, you guys were talking about acceptance and allowing, right? And I think forgiveness, people have a hard time equally with it, like accepting and allowing. Forgiveness, they think that it has to be okay. Allowing, that means I guess it has to be okay, and I just have to let it be.
I'm just going to say, Teresa, 100% agree with you. I was going to put my plug in there that is the one I am still struggling with, especially with one of the situations I've come to acceptance with. I understand, I discern why it's happened. I'm allowing it. I'm not trying to change it. I've accepted it. I respect it, but I cannot seem to forgive. I'm like, you are doing this. You are choosing this. What? Like, it's so tough. It's so tough. So amen to what you're saying.
Well, sometimes we think forgiving, that they're going to think that that's okay. That's their definition of it, I guess. You don't have to think it's okay to forgive it. But I wanted to read this one little thing, and it's on page 31, and it's so beautiful. The experience I was here to overcome was to return to my full power. That meant being able to speak my truth and stand up for myself, and learn how to do that with love of self and the love of others. That is standing in your power. I love it. It's beautiful. And I really feel that's where we need to be. That's just my opinion on that. I love it, Paige.
Thank you.
So if we apply that same knowledge to ourselves, we have to apply it to others as well. So when I start to get in that not allowing or don't want to forgive someone else, or they're doing something that I'm like, you're doing this again, because I've had plenty of those in my lifetime, is that I think to myself, who am I to know the way you're supposed to live your life? Who am I to know better than you what you're supposed to experience in this life and how you're supposed to experience it? And that allows me to step back and not try to control.
That's such a great point. I was thinking about that one too, that Paige, you were saying a lot of us have this savior complex where we need to save and help other people. And I had never thought of this until just right in this very moment. But love six actions kind of neutralize, they diffuse the situation. Whereas when we're trying to be the savior, what part of that, because I can think of situations in my own life, I won't speak for anyone else, but in my own life where I'm trying to be the savior because I love that person or want to help them, but also what part of my ego is at play there where I need to win? And it's like, no, I know what's right for you. I know what's best for you. Oh, you're not listening to me again. Like, what part of that is maybe an insecurity in me where it's like, I need to be right. I need to have this hold or on someone's life, or they need to understand where I'm coming from and agree and see my point of view. Could that be part of it too? Because we're talking about all these little thorns that are triggers. And I've definitely had that experience when I'm trying to offer advice, because it sometimes, not always, it totally can come from a loving place, but sometimes it's this like superiority complex of like, let me relay my wisdom to you, kind of.
I think with what you just said, Jenna, is typically like with friends, right? They're like, oh, why did you let me do that?
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? And so we automatically take that role and we make that our responsibility. And that's basically what happens. It's like, oh, why didn't you tell me this person wasn't a very kind person? If you saw it, why didn't you tell me? So now all of a sudden that becomes your responsibility. That becomes your baggage. So then you fall into the allow and acceptance and all of that. And you're like, but you made that my responsibility. And that right there, I think kind of also ties back to what Teresa was saying, which is creating those boundaries. Like, hey, I told you once, I'm not going to tell you 3 times, right?
Kind of even ties into the angel thing we were talking about earlier, where you have to ask the angels, you have to call Tracy to have your session, like shifting it to the space where if you want to know, then you have to ask. It's like kind of getting rid of the unsolicited advice side of things, which is really freaking hard to do. But Jenna's actually really good at this. Again, within our relationship, like we have this very comfortable situation where it's like, no, I'm calling you because I value what you have to say. I'm asking you. But she'll be like, okay, so I know you just shared that. Would you like to hear what I'm thinking?
That's new. That's new, because I've been on the other side of that where I'm like, I want your advice. I'm used to like, no, I'm too vulnerable for advice right now. Don't give me anything. Just let me rant. But that isn't new for me, because it's like, yeah, you do have to ask me. It's like, do you want to know my opinion? Is that going to even be helpful? That's new. So don't give me too much credit, because that's a new thing for me.
But I'm just saying, even if someone's then asking, okay, there's your invitation to share. There's your invitation to intervene or whatever. But if someone's not asking, it's not your responsibility. And I think Teresa is a master at this. Like Teresa just got this. Do you not think? I feel like you would, Teresa.
Well, thank you. Well, I was going to say, I take that one step further, because I do get, in gratitude, I do have people call or come over a lot and ask things. I always say, so it's kind of putting it back on them. Are you really sure? Are you really sure you want to hear what I have to say? So then it goes back on them, rather than, okay, what about da 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 da? And you tell them, you've owned it. You've lost your boundaries or whatever, and you've taken it on. But once I ask you again, are you really sure Are you really sure you want to hear
Yes, 3
what
times.
I'm going to say?
Teresa, you're making me sweat. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Third, are you really sure? I'm like, maybe I'm not.
Oh my God.
I'll kind of stop and go, well, maybe not. Well, let's go have a cup of coffee then.
Well, when
You
she was
know?
asking us right now, she's like talking at us in the camera, and I'm like, no, nope, not sure. But then
Yeah,
also
'cause
starts
I
sweating,
don't
and I'm
wanna
like,
own
what
it.
is happening? I am a
don't wanna own
disaster all
that.
of a sudden.
But it works.
Circling back to all of this and the point that you were initially making, Darian, about someone else making you responsible. That is something we have to be so aware of, in my opinion, as we move forward, because we're so programmed to take responsibility for everything everybody else says that we need to take responsibility for. And the fact of the matter is, the only person that you're responsible for is you, and you're responsible for how you react and how you feel. And that other person, you are not responsible for that other person. This is from a very compassionate, self-loving
Oh,
way
absolutely.
that creates healthy boundaries and loving relationships, honestly. And it was one of my biggest lessons.
Isn't it amazing how even from good backgrounds, even from good intentions, even from good morals, values, character that you've been taught, you can still walk away with programming and patterns that create negative sequences in your life? That's where some of the like grace to the growth, I think, also comes in, right? Because it's like, okay, I had very loving parents, did the absolute best for me, and it's okay to still look at that and go, but I did get some negative things from that. They were great. They did the best. There's no bad blood. It's all good. But I got some stuff to work through. It gives you permission to look at things through a different lens.
Yeah, and I'm sure my mom is listening to this and she has read the book, and from the bottom of my heart, I want them to know how much I love them, and that there is not 1 ounce of blame in all of that, because if you read the book, you understand that you're the one creating the meanings about yourself from those interactions. And they did everything just perfect.
Like I said before, I would love to have the experiences of your childhood. It was beautiful. I'd love to have your mom and dad.
I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
I was going to say, though, can we also take a minute to acknowledge the fact that, Paige, a lot of the things you were talking about were not feeling smart enough, not feeling empowered, not feeling like you could make your own decisions. And now you own this company with the mission of changing the world and bringing more love to the world. And you wrote a freaking book. You're a published author. This is a tangible overcoming of all of those fears that you had.
Yeah.
And to add on to that, if she hadn't have experienced those things in her childhood, she would never be here creating this beautiful, amazing, life-changing business.
And my parents gave me the foundation to understand love. And so when I moved far away from love, self-love in my life, even if it was just a tiny little spark, was still there, just waiting for me to acknowledge it, blow some oxygen on it,
ignite it
until it ignited. Yeah.
Also, shout out to the people that didn't have that background, that are finding their own way. Like, you should feel like a badass, because you are. That is truly inspirational, and you've got it just as much as someone that had that background. It's in you just the same. I know you just have to find it in a different way.
That's absolutely on point. I am on my journey, and I'm going to put the energy out there that I am a product of Love Ignites Peace, because this, over the last year or so, has been amazing. It has done so much. It engages, it ignites. It kind of catches me when I start to fall and when I start to fall apart. Do I still fall apart? Definitely. But it doesn't hurt as bad every time I do.
That's only human.
And
now Imagine Dragons just popped into my head.
Big night for Imagine Dragons.
Yeah, are we sponsored?
Yeah. Imagine Dragons, would you like to attend book club? Come to our next retreat.
It was my sincere intention in writing this book that there is something in here for everyone. Anyone who is interested in starting the journey to self-awareness, to becoming more self-aware, who has even the slightest little interest in planting the seeds of Love Ignites Peace in their heart and in their mind, there is something in this book for you.
Well, with that totally in mind, I would love it if everyone could just share maybe one takeaway that they hope a listener or a fellow reader would take away from the book or just on their journey of self-evolution.
Absolutely life-changing. You have to read it.
Wow. Thank you, Jenna.
Following Jenna, I would say a couple podcasts ago, I'm getting this tattoo, right? This is going to happen. Oddly enough, there was a line in there that I found to be amazing. So I'm kind of stuck because now I have two things that we should do a vote for. But there was a line in there that said, "Love melted my fears and taught me how to stand authentically in my wholeness." I either want that or I want a scale that says heavily tipped in one direction that says love and the other one that says not love on it.
Oh.
So now there's two. So
I
I
love that.
absolutely love the book. So I'm thinking maybe that's a tattoo that we can go do together for book club.
Christmas book club, Darian's getting tattoos.
Yeah, we're all going to be there cheering her on.
And I'm going to be crying. So, because I'm a giant sissy. If you've ever seen me like fall or trip, I'm like a 3-year-old. I'm crying. I'm like, kiss my boo-boo.
For me, this book is for anyone, no matter where they are on their journey. If they're just starting to dabble in, like, maybe there's more to this than just what my emotions are telling me, to someone that is years into this, there's something really powerful about holding this book and the energy and the frequency and the vibration that comes out of the words that you read.
What I would share, or what I do share, I've talked to some people, your life has meaning. From the beginning, the middle, to the end. Absorb it, look at it, respect it, treat it with love, and you will ignite peace. That's what's in this book. Your story has value.
For me, I would say, I hope that everyone can recognize that if you truly want to change the world, change yourself. It starts with you. And that would be my takeaway. Mama, do you have anything you want to leave the listeners with to contemplate?
What I would like to say is that everything that you've experienced in your life is important. And as Teresa said, it has meaning. And don't discount what you've experienced, because the nuggets of who you are, how you feel, all of those are contained as a result of your life experiences. We hear so often, don't live in the past, don't live in the past. And I agree, don't live in the past. But there is a value to looking at the past through this lens of how did that past influence who I am today? How did that past influence the not love that I created in my life and the love that I have created in my life? And from that past, how can I create, transform, and become the most amazing present? And I say that, I literally mean the word gift. How can I become the gift that I truly am in this world? But to embody that and take that gift of you out into the world in your wholeness, in all your messiness, because you are a gift. And your life is the gift that shows you all of those beautiful nuggets from your experiences.
Oh, so proud of you, Mama. And for everyone listening, we also have a journal that supports the book that you can do right alongside it. We didn't talk a lot about it, but it is also on the website. You can download the ebook and the companion journal at loveignitespeace.com. The actual physical copy will be available this fall sometime. So stay tuned on when the physical in your hand copy will be available.
This fall, you will be able to download the book on Kindle or Barnes and Noble, and also order a physical copy of the book. The book will be anywhere there is a distribution channel.
Right now, you can download it as a PDF, but this fall, those options will all be available. And we actually also, thinking of what Darian said about being a product of Love Ignites Peace, we are opening a limited number of spots each month into our personal one-on-one sessions in helping you walk through these Love 6 actions and overcoming or transforming a limitation in your life to love. So if you're feeling called to do that, go online to Love Ignites Peace as well and check it out. See if that's something that resonates, if you want some more of that personal one-on-one support through this process. We know that there's a lot to it. I wanted to leave with last 10-second thing, which is Paigey loves once in a while to write a juicy sentence, the sentences that Darian doesn't necessarily like. So I thought we would end on just a few quick sentences that are worth applauding. I had become unconscious and anesthetized to my life and completely oblivious to the obvious. Another one was, your negative subconscious self-beliefs are the gunpowder that ignite your triggers, the hot coals that keep your emotions burning for days and even years, and the smoke signal that works like the law of attraction. And then last but not least, why love? Because love turns your heart green with spring and your mind golden with sunshine.
Oh,
And with that said, we hope you all have an amazing, amazing rest of your day. And thank you so much for tuning in to this month's Love Ignites Peace Bathtub Chat
thank
out
you,
of the Bathtub
Paige.
Book Club podcast.
Thank you, everyone, literally
Yeah.
from the bottom of my heart, for being first readers and for all your love and support. I'm one blessed lady. I love you all.
We love you
Good.
too. This was
Job
one
well
of our
done, my friend.